All right, guys, how's it going? It's Mark here, and today I got a special guest.
An Tuan.
An Tuan. All right, cool, man. So tell us a little about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Vietnam originally, moved here when I was 10 years old, and I pursued martial arts when I was 14, and now I'm a undefeated MMA fighter out of Arizona, about to be in the UFC.
So what got you into martial arts?
So what got me into martial arts is when I was a kid, when I first moved here, I didn't know any English. So it was kind of hard for me to fit in with a lot of kids. And I would always get bullied at school. And I would always, want to fight back, but I didn't know how to fight. So I would just argue back and stuff. But when I first found the gym that I saw, it was a UFC gym in Scottsdale. And I was hanging out at the skate park with my friends or whatnot, and then I saw it out of the side of my eyes. And I talked to my dad about it the same night, and we signed up the next day, and it's been a journey ever since.
Okay. What was your first experience doing martial arts? Were you freaked out? Were you excited? Were you good at it? Were you bad?
At first, I would say I was bad at it, but I knew that there was something that I could learn. I was always down to learn stuff and, look stupid while I'm learning stuff, And time passed by and my consistency started adding up, and I'm good now, so.
I get you, man. Looking back at it when you first started. So tell me about your first loss. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember. So my first loss, when I started winning a lot in kickboxing, I started neglecting fighting. I wasn't being consistent anymore because I felt like I was such a natural at it.
And kickboxing was your first martial art, right?
Yeah, kickboxing was my first art that I've learned, and the first art that I competed in. And again, I was winning a lot, and I just kind of neglected the training part. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to win anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I would just hanging out with my friends all day, not training, and then go compete. And the funny thing is, the kid that I was originally about to fight the next day, he dropped out. And there was another kid at a weight class above me, and his opponent dropped out. So we went to the weigh-in, and my coach is like, hey, there's no opponent, like your opponent dropped out. But there is another kid over there. He's a way above you. We should fight him. I was like, okay, let's do it. I was so confident, because I was such a natural at fighting.
And what weight were you at that time?
I was a natural 125er. And this guy is a lot taller than me. He's a lot bigger. I think he must have cut weight to get down to 135. And I was like, let's do it. And I went over there the next day. We fought, and I lost by a split decision. And I was so depressed after that, but that's another story.
So being depressed about that fight, did that help you become a better fighter? Did that make you not want to fight at all?
So it was a little bit of both. I would say it was a little bit of both. I was very depressed because I lost the fight. It was my first loss in competitions. And I just kind of took time off. I didn't want to train anymore. I was like, maybe this is not for me. So I just started hanging out in the street with my friends, just doing dumb stuff, hanging out, partying, doing all that stuff. And the cool thing about it is every single time when I fell off of my path, God always put me back on the path. So I always would think that, whatever happens, everything bad happens in my life is for a reason. And I just got to find the silver lining. Like, why is it happening? What did I learn from this experience? And I just take that and I roll with it,
So for those of you who've never been in a martial art kind of environment, it's kind of a stressful situation when you're about to go and perform, basically fight. So I want to ask you this question. What's going through your head right before a fight?
Exactly what you just said. Fucking scared. You are very vulnerable, when you're about to walk out. You're in the back waiting, and all these people, they fought before you. Maybe it might be a teammate that fought before you. They'll come back. Some win, some lose, but the one that loses is like, hey, they're coming back in here, in tears, like all beat up, and you're like, fuck, I'm next, So you had to, for me, it's very it was for me. It was very easy to navigate through it because I've always been the only child. Like growing up, I was the only child, so I tried not to attach myself to other people. So I just kind of detach myself from everyone when I go to fight, and I just stay in the moment and do the best that I can. That was and a new mindset that I've learned through these experiences is you're gonna feel fear every time, every single time. There wasn't a fight that I didn't feel fear, but courage, you can't have courage without fear, right? Feeling the fear is giving you anxiety, but when you're doing it anyways, that's courage, right? And courage isn't a feeling. Courage is an action. So I feel the fear, I feel anxiety, but I'm just gonna say, fuck it, I'm gonna go anyways. I'm just gonna run into the fire and see what happens,
Is it difficult for you to make weight, like the diet, the hard things to sacrifice? Like obviously when you go out, you said you're from Vietnam, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine like when you kind of go out with family and stuff, they want you to eat their food, they want you to eat this, and you got to say no, like, the diet. Is that difficult for you?
I would say like when I'm in training camp, that's very difficult. I try not to go. Like if there's like a birthday party and my dad's like, hey, come to this birthday party. It's your cousin's birthday. I'm like, no, I can't go because I know I'm going to eat, and that happened to me a couple of times. So that's why I kind of missed weight a couple of times, like in my amateur career. And I just learned that lesson. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go. But dieting and cutting weight is literally the hardest part of the fight game. Like I wish I can just show up, just fight, but that's not part of it. So it's the weight cut is part of the job. So now that I'm a professional and I've gone through all of that, I know that I need to make these sacrifices to have the opportunity to go in there and show my skill set.
So what's your fight record right now?
Right now, professionally, I'm 6-0.
Okay, so you're undefeated. So that momentum when you're undefeated, I've never had that. I mean, you're the first person I've actually talked to who's been in the UFC and been undefeated. Is that like something that makes you extremely nervous for a fight, or is that something that makes you feel more confident?
So I'm not in the UFC yet. I'm going to be in the UFC sometime this year, but right now I'm just fighting. I'm fighting for a league called the LFA, which is right under the UFC. So it's like the feeding league to go into the UFC, and this is the point where like my amateur kickboxing career, I was winning a lot, and I started neglecting the fighting part back there. And now that I've learned that lesson, I try to not do that again. You know what I mean? I'm a very quick learner, and I don't make the same mistake twice. So now that I'm in this position, I have a lot of pressure to showcase that I'm really who the people think I am, which I am. And I just, focus on getting better, not going out partying. Of course, life is about balance, but for me, fighting is my life. So it's something that God gave me. So I just try to focus and do the best I can.
So you saying the best that you can. How do you stay motivated when you're starting to lose motivation? Like, what keeps you going? What's your why?
So for me, I try not to be. It's not like I try not to be motivated because there are some days where you feel like super good and your energy is high and you're like, hey, I'm motivated to go train, But most of the days you're not really motivated, and you gotta be disciplined. Like discipline is what you hate to do but you love, but you do it like you love it. That's what Mike Tyson said. And so when I have those days, I'm like, hey, I don't want to go training. I'm sore. I've trained 3 times last night. I don't want to go train. I don't want to go run. I don't want to lift weight. I don't want to go wrestle and get beat in the face, But I do it anyways. I force myself to go. And when I do that, it builds up callus in your brain, and it gets easier, but it doesn't get easier. But you just got to do it anyways.
Growing up watching martial arts, did you have any certain idols you looked at? Like who was somebody who inspired you the most and somebody who probably just didn't like it all?
I just looked up to all the legends, Mike Tyson.
What did
Conor
you specifically
McGregor.
like about Mike Tyson?
His mindset. I mean, he's a killer, like his skill sets, he's a killer, but his mindset, that's what I really love about him. And when I try to learn something, I try to go back to where it started, right? He learned his mindset from Customato. So for me, I just went back and I looked at a lot of videos and audio of Customato talking. And I just try to pick up all of those things that he says. And I just pick up everything that Mike Tyson said also.
Yeah, because I liked a lot of Mike Tyson. I did, I did a little bit of research on Customato too. And it did trip me out because he definitely had a very, very difficult childhood. And I feel like that's kind of what attracted me to him was, when he talked about how he was bullied for having a lisp, how some kid came and killed his pigeon. Yeah. I was just like, man, and growing up in Brownsville, like it's a pretty rough neighborhood around there. Growing up out here, did you deal with anything somewhat similar to that?
So I did have some experiences with that, like just being bullied and I just wasn't like a popular kid in school. So fighting is what was building my popularity, and I would just fight anybody in school just to get popular and to gain attention and all of that. But also when I was hanging out with my friends and stuff, I would do like, they were in gangs and stuff, but I wasn't like, in the gangs. I was just hanging out with all those guys. But I would also involve in a lot of those stuff. I've sold drugs like my friends do. I robbed some people like, my friends do. And thinking back about it, it wasn't the best choice, but it was how I was feeling at the time. And also like the people who you're surrounded by is going to define who you are. So I try to learn again. I try to learn every lessons that life taught me, and I just keep it and move forward.
It's good that you pointed out, your network is your net worth, and you kind of are the 5 people you surround yourself with. Nowadays, who do you really surround yourself with? Is it close friends you grew up with, or is it new people?
Now I just I spend most of my time at the gym because I feel like those people, my teammates and my coaches, have the same trajectory as me, and I try to learn from everybody. But I just try to surround myself with people that has a good head on their shoulder and a good mindset, and you can just feel it. When you talk to someone, when you conversate with someone, you can just feel. And when you feel that with someone that that are older than you, that you could learn something from, I try to always keep myself around those people.
And then you growing up, where'd you grow up at again?
Here?
Yeah.
I grew up in like the border of Phoenix and Scottsdale.
Okay, but you were born in Vietnam, right? And you moved here when you were, was it 10?
Yeah, when I was 10 years old, I moved here.
So what was that experience like coming from another country and not knowing the language here? Was that a very difficult thing for you to overcome?
Yeah, it was very difficult at first, but luckily I came here when I was 10. I was young and I was able to learn a lot quicker. And I remember when I would just go to school, there was another teacher that would pull me out of class and she would show me how to, pronounce like a word on flashcards, like, what is this? Oh, an apple, and just stuff like that. And it was really hard at first, but again, I was a kid, and so I was able to learn very quick.
And you came here with both your parents?
So my dad was here first. My grandpa and my grandma sponsored him over here, and when he came over, he got a job and he worked super hard to save up money to bring me and my mom over.
Do you still have contact with them?
Yeah, me and my dad, we live together right now. Mm-hmm. But we don't really have like a good relationship, like growing up in like as a Vietnamese, I don't know about other Asian, but my dad is pretty militant, and he just wanted me to do what I'm supposed to do, which is, chase after my dream. And he's just there to support me. We don't really talk much, but, what's understood, don't have to be said.
Mm-hmm. So would you describe that as like tough love?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. So he's basically doesn't tell you he loves you, but you kind of know that he does, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I get how that works. A good question I wanted to ask you is, what describes, like, what is a man to you? Like when you were growing up, when I was growing up, I thought, making a lot of money is what makes you a man. Having sex with a lot of women is what makes you a man. Going to war, stuff like that, like getting a mansion. What defines a man?
Growing up, I had the same mindset, and now that I'm older, I have a different mindset, which is, I feel like a high valuable man to me is having all of the areas in your life at 100, you know? Having your money at 100, relationships with your parents at 100, or everyone around you, you know what I mean? And also having a group of people, like-minded people around you. And everyone has a different definition of success, you know? Like if let's say the guy down the street, he's selling tacos out of a taco truck, but that was his dream, then he's successful, you know? But for me, I want to be a UFC champion. And before, until I get there, I'm not successful yet. So I would say, you know, it just depends on what your definition of it.
So you grew up with your father, and was your grandfather out here as well, or was he still in Vietnam?
My granddad from my father's side is here, but my everyone else on my mom's side is over in Vietnam.
Looking at your father and your grandfather and you, would you say that there's a lot of similarities in you guys' in yourself and your father and your grandfather?
I wouldn't say so, because again, they have a different definition of success, right? For my grandparents, it was to get my parents over here and to give them a better opportunity. Likewise for my dad, you know, his definition of success is to bring me over, to give me the opportunity to make something out of myself, you know? And but for me personally, I want to shoot as high as I can. I want to become a UFC champion. I want to be a millionaire, maybe a billionaire, you know? And I want to have everything in life, you know? Because why not? Because why not, you know? I grew up very poor, so I already know the poor side, you know what I mean? And I just want everything that life has to offer.
So that being said, do you feel like there's a lot of pressure on you to perform from your family?
I would say yes and no, because growing up, I wasn't like my cousins. Like most of my cousins are kids that, you know, you would go to school, get good grades, and make their parents like proud. But that wasn't me growing up. I didn't like school. I never liked going to school. I never liked authorities. You know what I mean? So I would just do whatever I want to do. So fighting was that for me, and I was always the black sheep of the family, which is, you know, I just didn't care what my family thought. I just kind of did what I wanted to do, and I just do what I want to do to feel proud of myself.
When you chose martial arts, what specifically drew you towards kickboxing over jiu-jitsu or wrestling?
I would say just it was just the people there. My coach, my very first coach, his name was Russell McKinney. He was a Muay Thai fighter, and me and him got along. You know, I looked at him like he's my mentor, and he took me under his wings, and he was showing me different techniques that works, and he just kind of took me under his wings, and you know, I just adapted to it, and you know, just learned from him.
So what were some idols you had for kickboxing?
Back then or now?
Either or.
I would say a lot of Japanese kickboxers, just because Muay Thai is good, but I feel like it's kind of slow in a way, to where comparing to Japanese kickboxing is very quick. It goes from point A to point B very quick, and just the movement is a lot faster, a lot more on their feet, bouncing in and out of range, which Muay Thai doesn't do that, because you stand in front of a person and you just trade blow for blow. For me, I like to fight smart, you know? I don't like getting hit in the face. And it's not like I don't like getting hit in the face, but it's like I don't mind it, but I like to fight smart. So for me, I want to hit my opponent to where he can't hit me back. I want to demolish him to where I look like I didn't even go to a fight, you know? And that's my way of fighting. I fight smart, and that's why I look up to Mike Tyson a lot of Japanese kickboxers.
Is there any specific Japanese kickboxers?
I would say this guy named Tenshin. I don't want to butcher his last name.
I get you, man. So that being said, you know, the difference between like Muay Thai, kickboxing, your style is more kickboxing, obviously. So you said you lost your first fight. It was a kickboxing fight, right?
Yes.
And then when you overcame that, did you continue to do kickboxing, or did you do a different martial art after that?
That's a good question. When I lost that fight, I just kind of just did my thing, just hanging out with my friends. And then I went back on the path again, and I started training MMA. I just kind of, I don't know, I think I just kind of looked for something new, something that intrigued me, you know, and I found out that I was very good at MMA, so that's what I'm doing now.
How long have you been doing MMA now?
So kickboxing, I think I did 2 years of my out of 9 years, and the rest is MMA.
And what was your first MMA fight? When was it and where was it at?
So my first MMA win was when I turned 18, because in the state you have to be 18 years old to legally compete in MMA, and I always wanted to be in the UFC, you know. So right when I turned 18, signed up, and I think I fought. It has to be before or after. No, after my birthday. Yeah. So I think a couple months after my birthday, I just fought, and that was my first.
So do you remember exactly what was going through your head for your very first fight?
Through my very first fight, again, I was very scared. I didn't know how to. I didn't have a good mindset going into the fight. I was such a natural at striking to where I just go in there and I just let my instinct do the work. But now that I'm a lot wiser and I've been doing it for a long time now, I go in there strategically. I study myself first. I see what my opponent see in me and his game plan first, and then I study him and learn how to beat him. So now I know what he's trying to do, and he doesn't know what I'm trying to do.
So how would you describe your style if someone tries to study you?
It's very hard to beat me because I'm very good at everything. If you decide to stand with me, I'm going to knock you out. But if you try to take me down, I'm going to use my jiu-jitsu to stop your wrestling. But if you try to jiu-jitsu me, I'm going to punch you in the face, because, you know, jiu-jitsu is very hard to do in MMA. You got to control your opponent's limbs. You can't punch in straight jiu-jitsu. So all these guys, they think, you know, I love jiu-jitsu. I'm not talking shit about jiu-jitsu. I love it, you know. But the con in jiu-jitsu, the whole in jiu-jitsu is punching. So when people start grabbing your limbs, you start punching them. There's only so many brain cells you can lose before you go out, you know. So I don't know. I just don't have an idea yet because I haven't experienced it yet.
Who was your most difficult opponent?
The most skilled opponent I've had was this guy named Bangjarok. I don't want to butcher his last name, but he was a Mongolian guy. I think it was my second or third pro MMA fight where they flew this guy over from Mongolia to fight me, and it was his first time in America. And I would, you know, throughout camp, I would try to look this guy up. I can't find anything, and I'm Asian, so I'm really good at digging stuff out of the internet, you know. And I finally found his Road to UFC videos, and he did this show called Road to UFC, which is like a tournament that take you into the UFC. He won most of them, but when I saw his technique, I try not to assume how good people are off of their records. I watch them, I watch their skill sets, and then I'll see how good they actually are. And this guy, he was good, but I felt like I was a lot better and I was a lot wiser. And but he was my toughest opponent.
Do you do any hikes out here? Like you run a mountain or camelback?
A mountain, you can't ever go wrong with that. I usually go A mountain is like my first choice, or I'll go to Tempe Town Lake to run on Sundays. But those are my two go-to spots. But whenever it gets hot out here, me and my friends, we usually go up to Wet Beaver Creek. It's a good 1.5, 2 hour hike. You get up to the top, and there's this cliff jumping spot that you could jump off of, and it's fucking scary. It's like it's way scarier than going into a fight. But again, you feel it and you get just do it anyways. But those are the spots that I like to go to.
So how important is running?
It's very important because cardio is king, right? If you go into a fight with no cardio, it doesn't matter how good you are, how much power you have. If you're gonna get tired within the first 3 minutes, you're gonna get beat, right? So I try to focus on my cardio a lot too. there's something called Zone 2 training, to where it's a steady intensity, long distance that builds your endurance. So I try to get most of that out of camp, and then whenever I'm in camp, I try to focus on high intensity, and a lot more explosive plyometric training.
Have you ever been injured from running?
I don't think I've ever been injured from running before.
Good. Yeah, I was sprinting once and I tore my calf, and it took me a while to heal from that one. So I remember I was like, oh, I'm not going to run for a while. And then I felt like psychologically, because I didn't run it for, like about a year or two, I just felt like I was never the same. Because like when you're running, you get the runner's high, and you've always have your confidence is a lot higher. Well, obviously when you're in better shape. Do you ever feel like it's difficult to recover from running? How often do you run a week?
I try to run out of camp. I run at least once a week, but if I could do two, I'd do two. But
how long are your runs?
I usually run 5 miles, 5.5, and usually takes like an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes. And I just go at a steady distance, a steady pace. I try to pace myself throughout the jog, and yeah.
Where can people find you at?
On Instagram. My Instagram handle is An Tuan Ho MMA, ANTUANHO MMA.
All right, cool. And when's your next fight?
So my next fight is going to be sometimes in June. I don't have the information yet, but when I do, I'm going to post it on my Instagram.
All right, man. You got anything else you want to say?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure to be here, getting to know you guys, and I look forward to the next one.
All right, cool, man. Thanks. Peace out.
Podemos escaparnos juntos